Trump's new tariffs on imports from China are still set to begin tomorrow. Jason Allen in Laredo, Texas reports American businesses are getting ready to pass along their higher costs to consumers. Jason.
Yeah, behind me is one of the bridges that carries as many as 20,000 trucks a day between the U.S. and Mexico. Now, it's quieter tonight because it's a holiday over in Mexico, but Border Protection and importers told me traffic has been heavier recently as retailers try to get ahead of higher prices.
At the Altoon and Lube in Laredo, Texas.
We'll get it back to you with pricing, okay?
Manager Luis Guzman has been stocking as many oil filters, brake pads, and engine parts as he can, trying to beat the price increases 25% tariffs could bring.
How many of the parts you get are probably coming from manufacturers in Mexico?
If I want to say a rough estimate, maybe a good 60%, 50% parts come from there.
Across town, Rick Laurel's warehouse has been filling up for weeks with products such as makeup, cardboard tubing, cement mixers, all from Mexico.
Now it's going to get even more full because now we have a 30-day window that both presidents just talked.
So you don't expect it to go back to normal. You think they'll try to keep moving goods as fast as they can.
With an extension of just 30 days, that doesn't push anything. The only thing it does is pushes the line, 30 more days.
It doesn't erase the uncertainty.
It doesn't erase the uncertainty.
Laredo Mayor Victor Trevino says that uncertainty is something new for this city.
That's what makes it different, and that's what makes it a little bit worrisome. This is what I think it's like a playing chicken. Who's going to move first? Who's going to give way first? We're the largest port in the United States. About 40% of all the merchandise that goes into the U.S. passes through here. So that's significant.
Even a small impact to a trade corridor where $300 billion in goods move through every year is something that Luis Guzman and his customers can't afford.
So right now I want to be in a market where I'm going to be competitive with my prices, and I want to be actually good to be good friendly budget. But with these tariffs, I don't know if I can even be friendly budget because we don't know how much they're going to be raising up on my prices.
Leading up to this, local officials told me they were preparing for this really like an emergency. They were talking to their counterparts in Mexico, knowing there isn't a whole lot they could do about it, but really just wanted to be prepared for what was ahead.
Jason, what was Luis Guzman going to do if this tariff did happen with prices as he passed them on to customers?
What I heard from businesses today, John, is they weren't really going to be able to absorb much of this increased cost. For instance, at his shop, if he was able to still offer a car part at the same price, he was going to find somewhere else he could make it up. He was already looking at maybe increasing his hourly labor costs in order to make it up.
And Jason, when you say ripple effect, what would that actually look like for Americans living there along the border?
So let's take Laredo as an example. If goods come through here and they're higher prices, maybe people start buying less. That means there's less demand. There's less shipping that happens. That leads to impacts to jobs, state revenues as well. You can see the ripple effect. And remember back to the pandemic, this is a very complex system, Maurice. It is not something that is unraveled easily.
And briefly, Jason, is anybody breathing a sigh of relief now that the trade war has been paused?
Maybe for a day, John, but this really showed them they don't know what to expect. So at the auto shop, they've got empty shelves. They're going to try to fill them because they don't know what happens in 30 days.
Jason Allen in Laredo. Thank you, Jason.
Now let's bring in CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. So, Kelly, let's take a stroll here through the economic case that Donald Trump is making for slapping tariffs.
Okay, so a big driver is getting better trade relationships. So let's look at some numbers. It's 2023. The U.S. sells $354 billion in goods to Canada, $323 billion to Mexico. That same year, though, they bought $419 billion from Canada and $475 billion from Mexico. So that means there's a trade deficit of $64 billion with Canada and $153 billion with Mexico.
And you definitely don't want to be on the short end of a trade deficit.
No, economically, you want them to rely on you versus you relying on them.
Okay, in practical terms, what does it look like when we slap a tariff on an actual item, an everyday item?
So let's look at a car battery manufactured in Canada, and then a car company buys it, brings it into the U.S., they sell it to a repair shop, and then ultimately a customer. But If there is a tariff, that same U.S. car company pays an import tax to bring that car battery into the U.S. Then they have to decide how much are they going to pass on to that repair shop. And then ultimately the consumer says, okay, that car battery costs more. Am I going to buy it? Maybe yes, maybe no.
And this is where potential inflation could happen.
Right. It could mean higher prices. It also could mean that car company says, well, maybe I should manufacture that battery in the U.S. And then our trade partners say, well, maybe rather than paying import taxes, I should just do a better trade deal with the U.S.
Three potential outcomes. Kelly O'Grady, thanks so much.
The prospect of a trade war had investors dumping stocks in the early going today. The Dow plunged nearly 350 points in the first half hour in trading, but by the end of the day, it recovered a lot of its losses, closing down 122 points.